I'm Dr. Pete Economou, the East Coast psychologist,
And I'm Dr. Nikki Rubin, the West Coast psychologist.
and this is When East
Meets West.
Well, it is Olympic season. I know we don't like to date things, but Nikki, every 4 years I was not bullied for being a swimmer, so that's why I'm celebrating. And so,
When people weren't stoked on you being a swimmer, I
I
was a swimmer
mean,
too.
I know, but
Or
you're in
not like you, not like you. I mean, just
well,
for listeners, Pete went to the Olympic trials. I did swimming to maintain my. I was a water polo player, which also was just in high school. But yeah.
and maintained your surfing abilities.
Yes, sure, but
So
it's not. Yeah,
on the West Coast, yeah.
yep.
So
That's not cool. That's not
no,
cool.
I mean,
Becky's.
especially I grew up in a house of like baseball players, and so like, what's the first thing people think about when they think of a male swimmer is a speedo.
Yeah, but where I grew up, that was like
The norm.
it was very attractive, very cool.
You didn't look separately at like first of all, cool surfers don't wear speedos. Just gonna put that out there.
But all the surfers, at least a lot of them, like were did water polo or swimming.
Yeah, so they would do that there. So
Yeah,
we're
and
gonna
also
talk about.
we have outdoor pools too. That's the other difference.
Well, and
Yeah,
you guys have outdoor
yeah.
pools and usually Olympic sized pools. I was saying that to somebody the other day.
Yeah.
Like that's the norm pool when you're in like these tropical geographic areas.
We're not tropical.
warm. You're not tropical. You're tropical to
Desert here in
me.
California. Okay,
Yeah.
but yeah.
All right, sports and mental health.
Sports and mental health. So obviously, this is your bread and butter here. So start us off. Like, it's really been obviously more and more. It's in the news. Like a lot of professional athletes are talking about it, which I'm just like very like thrilled to hear. I think it's so important. But yeah, tell me.
Any of your LA Dodgers talking about it? Just wondering. I'm
That's
sure
a
they must
great
be.
question. I mean, probably now. Well, you know what? I'm actually not aware of any of them
Yeah.
talking about that. I don't know. Now that makes me want to go look that up. Go look
We're
that up
gonna-
after
I mean,
this conversation.
Had our producers done their work, we would have had that in front of
Yeah,
us.
so we would have had that ready to go. Yeah.
So for our listeners, it's a joke. We don't have producers. Okay. So yeah, my guess is there are because, baseball really started like mental skills and sports psychology. It's
Yeah.
one of the first sports, baseball
Oh.
and golf. Yeah. But Simone Biles, Lyles Noah, these are two Olympic gold medalists from
Yes.
the US that are talking very openly about their work with a sports psychologist. And, specifically, I'll start with this, Nick, and I'll see what you think. Like, in the world of sports psychology, there's two fields. There's a field that just thinks they do performance, and then there's a field that says it's mental health and performance. We've talked about that a bit on the podcast. I'm in the like mental health. Behavioral health is health, is the way that I think about it.
Correct. Yes. Correct. Yeah.
Preaching to the choir.
Yeah. 100%. I'm like, our brains are a part of our bodies, but go on.
Just another organ.
Yeah. Just another organ.
And so I think really what I'm hearing in like Simone and some of these other athletes is mental health. Like it's not just mental skills. It's not like Simone needed to just find like her pre-routine like imagery. I mean, it was like, so before I go into it, like from your outside in, and with what do you think people sort of think she's been struggling with, or like, what would you say that the worldview would be of her in terms of performance or just mental health?
Yeah, I mean, so I think that's a really good question because I think for most people, because this is what we do, I think just in general, but of course with people in the public eye or people that are really, really successful, the assumption is that they're not struggling.
Right.
Right? That's actually what it is. The assumption is they have it all figured out. They must be, sure, it's stressful. Maybe they have a thought like that. Like, it must be stressful to be Simone Biles. Like, that's a lot of pressure. But I think most people would make the false assumption that everyth's amazing all the time, right?
Yeah. It's like it's as if they're superhuman. Like I think that's exactly what you're pointing at. And for me, I think that's what the art and the beauty of what I do is that I have these superhumans that I get to work with, and they get to share their like deepest, darkest vulnerabilities. And I could be the sort of person to help them resolve, navigate, figure that out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what's so wonderful about these professional athletes being vulnerable and sharing about that is that, first of all, it like helps people that are not in positions of, like extreme success or, extreme skill, to see like, no, we're actually, to use a phrase we say in acceptance and commitment therapy a lot, we're all in the same soup, right?
Yeah.
Which is, like what that means, and is obviously borrowed from a lot of Eastern concepts, is like all humans struggle,
Yeah.
right? Like we struggle in different ways and to varying degrees, right? There's a spectrum, of course, but
Yeah.
the given is that we all struggle. And it's also, unfortunately, human nature to compare and make the assumption, I'm the only one struggling. Like, I'm out here alone on an island and everybody
Yes.
else has it figured out. And that's just not the case. So I think that naming that is so
Yeah.
powerful, and it starts to shift um, the conversation and hopefully the perspective that, this might sound a little bit cheesy, but that like acknowledging that you're struggling is a strength, right?
Yes.
As
Yes.
opposed to a weakness. And I think I would
Yes.
imagine in sports, again, I'm not a sports psychologist, but you know, I would imagine there's a lot of languaging historically. It's like obviously it's around winning, right? Winning
Yeah.
and losing. So there's a lot of, I imagine, like what's strong and what's weak. And so to be able to say, actually acknowledging that I have struggles, I could use support, that saying that that's a strength instead of a weakness, I imagine just becomes very powerful.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, we're all in the same soup. But to really highlight, you don't have to be a sports psychologist. I mean, I only just
I
started
mean,
calling
fair.
myself that. I mean, you work with high performers, you work with, people that are doing the things that athletes are doing, which is just like you said,
Sure.
winning, you know, whether
Hmm.
it's, somebody in the arts or whether it's somebody in business. I mean, everyone is trying to win in some way, almost. I'm
Sure.
just right.
Sure.
I think at that level, like a Lyles Noah or Simone Biles, going for the gold in a time where nothing is private. Back in the day,
Yes.
you know, like back in the day, you would run into an Olympic athlete in the supermarket and not even know, like you've heard of the
Sure.
athlete's name, but
Sure. That's such
you
a
may
good
not have known
point.
what they looked like, right?
Yeah, sure. Well, with the exception of maybe like one or two, I'm sure. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The scrutiny is
Yeah.
just like exponentially higher. And this goes for, it's interesting. It's like, as you're talking, I'm thinking about this, of course, goes for anybody in the public eye, but
Yeah.
what's weird in the age of social media is anybody can be in the public eye. So,
Sure.
you could be
Overnight.
considered in the public, yeah, or you could be considered being in the public eye within your community if you're if
Yeah.
you're a social media user. So, you know, all of this unfortunately feeds into beliefs, right? That
Yeah.
everybody else has got it all figured out, everybody else is perfect. You know what I'm saying? Again, we've talked a lot about
Yeah.
this on this podcast. Social media, unfortunately, leans into that
Yeah.
tendency of the brain and exacerbates it. And so it leaves individuals feeling alone and like they're the ones messing up. And I think
Yeah.
that, again, professional athletes being open about, needing support for their mental health or struggling with their mental health, it's it's just another version of this where we could say, look, I'm a human first and
Yeah.
foremost. I'm a human. I struggle. I need help sometimes. And I can still do amazing things even when I'm having a hard time. I think that's also what's a cool message. And like Simone Biles, like which took like a year off, right?
Yeah.
Was it a
She
year,
did.
I think?
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
also like, by the way, also very brave to do that, to say
Ugh.
no when people
Yeah.
like, that's another thing. It's like to say no, that like I matter first. And yes, everybody has these expectations on me, but I'm not going to do that
Yeah.
because I want to be like healthy and, you know, in my aliveness, and
Yeah.
continuing to be pushed isn't going to work right now.
Well, one of the things you talk a lot about is like value-based living. And that's what I think that's what I
Hmm.
hear in that, and again, like
Hmm.
we're not we're not treating anybody, like we're not treating her, we're
Sure,
not trying to die.
sure,
We're just
sure.
saying like this is behaviorism. Behaviorism is she had to make a decision. And in her sport, it's super dangerous. Like to
Yes,
get the twisties in gymnastics
yes, yes,
is could be deadly. And
yeah.
how many, and I'll tell you, like this year in 2024, she injured her calf, was reported
Hmm.
during, I think the team, which is the first part of
Hmm.
gymnastics, and the commentators were like, "Oh, here we go! Like she's injured again, or what's going to happen?" It was all so judgmental and negative.
Yes,
And I wanted
yes.
to reach through the screen and strangle or at least slap or something.
Not for real.
No, not for
Pete
real.
doesn't condone violence, anyone. This
I do
is
not
just
condone
not.
violence. In fact, I wouldn't even know how to be violent. I can't even kill
It's
bugs,
actually true.
but it's okay to have that fantasy and that thought.
It is sure, totally.
But it brings up a thing where there's like fandom, and I actually was interviewed recently for an article where they were like doing this. So this year also they have you'll appreciate this if you haven't seen it. They're putting some of the parents of the athletes on like biofeedback. They're doing like their heart rate or blood pressure while they're watching their child compete, which is like both really cool but also super vulnerable for the parent.
Totally. Well, I mean, there is this saying to be a parent is like your heart living outside of your body. So
yes. That's what. And so we're putting that on like international TV. But the reporter was asking me, and the journalist was like, "Is that dangerous?" And it's like, no, like that's it's just the human experience. Like most fans feel that way, and I think this is another sort of symptom of social media where the fans almost feel like the athlete is theirs. It's I wonder what you thought about that.
Oh, totally. I mean, I think that I think it's like everything, right? It's like two sides of a coin. I think the adaptive or connecting part of that is the part of like we can share an experience, right? Like it can be bonding and unifying, and it can be like, yes, again, we like we care about these people, right? And like with the Olympics, right? It's like it's having pride for your country, right? And it's if it's like we talk, I talk about my beloved Dodgers, like pride for my city, right? Like so there's a connection element. I think that's really wonderful. I think the not so helpful side of it is the part where it becomes, and like you're saying, it's like they owe it to me. I own them. They should do this for me, right? It becomes more individualized. I think it becomes more about what feels good to you, or doesn't feel good to you to that point. So it's like it's just interesting. Sports in so many ways, I think, just they use a lot of sports analogies. Obviously, on this podcast, I certainly do in therapy. It's like because they're great analogies for just like things that we do as human beings, and there can be wonderful things about it, but there's like everything. There's like
good and
strengths
bad.
or limitations, good and bad, it works and it doesn't work. So, I think I feel for those parents though. I think I'm like, who's making these poor parents do biofeedback?
I'm assuming they're consenting. Well,
I know, but I'm like, it's not very nice. It's not very nice.
It's not very nice. But there is this like unification thing that happens, especially every 4 years with the Olympics. I think that is a really beautiful thing. And having family from other parts of the world, when you see like the production from other parts of the country, like whether it's Colombia or Sweden, it's a different lens. It's a different worldview, which I think is kind of cool because I actually, the American view that I've been watching will share stories of like those across the globe, whereas like the Colombian production is very much only about the Colombian athletes that are competing. So I think that was like an interesting observation because there's this unification piece. The Olympics is all about that international piece of like we're competing, but also like it's you learn to be, what is that? Oh God, like to be a good sportsmanship. Oh. Remember, we have to do that episode on word finding, right?
Yeah. We do need to. Pete and I have talked about that. We're always like, we need to talk about word finding because we got word finding difficulties. So you're saying what you've observed. It's actually interesting what you're saying because you're saying what you've observed is your take is that in the American broadcasting, they're doing a broader, like deep dive on. Well, it's very funny because like, I mean, I believe you. I haven't noticed that this go around. In general, that's never my experience. Actually, I feel like it's always, and in fact, like the thing I get very irritated about, and I'm also in a way that also makes me laugh. Or I'm like, it's so American. It's like we love to do the medal counts, which is like we always have the most, right? Well, obviously, but it's always like we're the best or whatever. So I'm glad to hear you've noticed an intention to move away from that and to be more. It
seems like it, but the medal count is there, and to your point, America is winning. But
yes.
Oh boy.
I don't even have anything to say about it.
I know. If you could see, she has her hand on her head.
Yes, yeah.
I think, sort of wrapping this up, one of the things that we focus on in the world of performance is process, not outcome. And so you kind of opened up this episode with like, it's about winning. And the truth is a lot of sport, if not all of it, is about winning, some sort of better number. And inevitably, you will fail. Like that's the thing about sport.
Yeah.
And
well, it's about life, right?
That's about life. It is about life.
It's like the winning is like, I think, again, why sports are beautiful analogies for just all kinds of experiences we have as humans is like, yeah, like it's like the old, like you win some, you lose some. It's like, there's nothing wrong with wanting to win or achieve or be successful. It's like, there's nothing wrong about that. Like they're destinations and those could be really amazing and mean a lot to a person or celebratory. It's just like, and then there's the next moment.
Well, I mean, I'm going to wrap this up with a quote that I shared recently with some of my athletes that are like going through, football camp and things like that. And that will piggyback really nicely off of what you just said. So I reminded them that this moment is about building grit, like adding money to your bank account. Feel your feet, no judgment, take a breath, let go of anything you're holding on to. Now is now, this moment only.
This has been When East Meets West. I'm Dr. Pete Economou.
And I'm Dr. Nikki Rubin. Be present, be brave.
This has been When East Meets West. All material is based on opinion and educational training of Drs. Pete Economou and Nikki Rubin.
Content is for informational and educational purposes only.